my name is Hannah Dillon. I am a Jolly Phonics trainer, so I am working with our UK schools to supporting teachers in implementing Jolly Phonics, and I'm sharing my experience of teaching with Jolly Phonics, but also my experience training other teachers in Ethiopia and in the UK. And yes, I have a languages background. I speak French and German, and that's helped me understand the experience of children that have English as an additional language, and trying to teach them the complexities of English. English is very complicated to read and spell, but Jolly Phonics makes it simple for children, and it makes it fun, which is the most important thing. I really think the most effective part of Jolly Phonics is actually when we look at the actions and the songs when we're learning Jolly Phonics and grammar. So the actions come in Jolly Phonics, but then when we move on to grammar, we're still using actions, so moving our bodies. We're using colour and pictures together with songs, and it really engages children's brains in a different way, and it really makes learning fun for children, but also it's actually so thorough and systematic. Children can't help but learn when they're learning through Jolly Phonics, and they almost don't know that they're learning, because they're just having so much fun in the lesson. But then you actually see such amazing results, and I think that's because it's helping children to use their body parts and their brains in a certain way, and that helps to with their learning. So Jolly Phonics on its own doesn't make a balanced English curriculum. What we need is Jolly Phonics as a tool to help children to crack the code of reading, but then we also need the contributions of the fantastic authors that we have in the English language. So we're showing children whole books as well, and showing them the world of reading, but the phonics will help children to access that world, and that's how I and many teachers and trainers like me are helping to make sure that children are really getting the skills that they need to be readers and writers. The thing that I find really important is when you look at the whole Jolly Phonics and Jolly Grammar programme, it's a 7-year programme, and it has that really strong foundation in phonics, but then it's continuing and building on that knowledge as they go through school. So it doesn't just leave phonics in reception just as an isolated thing. Children are constantly revisiting that learning and building up their knowledge of spelling patterns, their knowledge of reading, and it really is comprehensive. So it's covering the spelling areas, but also the key grammar areas, and I've found that really makes a difference with children's writing in particular, because they have that real deep understanding of grammar, and you can use the programme as it is, and you can adapt it and really teach those things that you see are coming up in children's writing where they're making mistakes. You can use the programme to address those misconceptions and really move children on in their writing and reading as well. Yes, so I was the Director of Education at a charity school in Ethiopia. So we got our children learning through phonics at the kindergarten level, which is age 5 and 6 in Ethiopia. So children in Ethiopia speak their home language, and then when their first encounter with English is when they come to school. So they really have no knowledge of English. So really they are learning, in our school they were learning English through Jolly Phonics. So we used the richness of the pictures in the big books to explore language and make sure that comprehension was integrated into the teaching of reading and writing. Because I had spent some time in Ethiopia. I'd already spent a year there. I was aware, and my teachers were very much aware of the sounds which would be tricky for Amharic speakers. So, for example, the sound doesn't exist in many languages. It's really unique to English, so we would spend extra time on getting children to try to produce, and the teachers, in fact, trying to produce this sound. So we would use a mirror, and we would make sure they could see their tongue was sticking out while they were producing that sound. A lot of the stories and songs in Jolly Phonics are really culturally from our English context. So we had to adapt and explain and pre-teach a lot of the concepts in Jolly Phonics, like, for example, tennis. The children wouldn't have come across the game of tennis before, so we purchased some tennis rackets and got the children to actually play tennis before they were going to learn the t sound, because we learn tennis. But if a child has never seen a game of tennis, that doesn't make any sense, so we contextualise it like that. Yeah, so really the outcomes that I saw were magical. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. So I felt like when I was helping the teachers to teach through Jolly Phonics, they weren't just learning the sounds or how to teach reading, they were actually learning a whole new world of pedagogy and how to teach something in an engaging way, which uses a multi-sensory approach, so using the props and songs and sounds and everything together. It really produced this magical result, and that's really made me, started me on this journey to wanting to share this information with all the teachers. Being a language learner myself, it makes me really aware, it made me really aware of the complexity of English. So having it as my mother tongue, I never saw it that it was complicated, but as soon as I started to learn other languages, I could see, reflecting on my own language, how much the spelling patterns are complicated, the origin of words is different for different contexts. So yeah, I think that really helps me with empathy for learners. And the other thing that children always pick up on is my love of words and my vocabulary. So I'm always trying to model to children high level vocabulary, and that really helps them to have like that rich language environment and pick up words from teaching. So yeah, I've found that having myself struggled with learning languages, I have more understanding of what it's like, and I think it's definitely engaging for children who have no English or little English to learn through in that way. Yeah. For me, the main skills are being able to pronounce the sounds consistently and correctly. People think that because I'm a UK trainer, I shouldn't need to address this with people working in schools, but actually there is inconsistency how teachers and teaching assistants are pronouncing the sounds, and that really creates confusion for learners. So that's my #1 priority, that every teacher and teaching assistant, anyone who's teaching, should be pronouncing the sounds in the same way. The other skill that I think is essential is enthusiasm and making everything a game. So there is a tendency for the training or for professional development to be quite serious, but I think Jolly, as we've seen in this conference, makes everything fun, and that engages people automatically. The other thing is personalising learning. So teachers need to be able to know the areas where children may struggle, and be ahead of the game in terms of anticipating where the struggle might be. So, for example, just this week I'm teaching my 4-year-old in Jolly Phonics. So I know from my own experience that segmenting is a tricky skill. So when we're listening to words and trying to pick out the sounds, that's segmenting. So if my son is hearing cat, he needs to be able to know it's k, a, t. Did that wrong. K, a, t. So that's what we've been practicing loads of just at the breakfast table and stuff, just trying to make it fun, so that when he gets to school, he's able to segment for spelling. So that's really important. So yeah, in terms of strategies, when I'm working with schools, I always talk about implementing Jolly Phonics throughout the school. It's really important. So it needs to be a whole school approach. It can't just be in one year group. It has to be all teachers and all classes adopting the method wholeheartedly. But then again, it also has to be flexible. So there's no point teaching your class the next step in the program if they haven't mastered the step beforehand. So it's a balance between making it a whole school approach and then also being aware of the learners you have in front of you and adapting it accordingly. Fun, inspiring, and magical.